faithfully conveying value, interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, the book I'll interpret for you is Tolstoy's novel, Resurrection. In November 1910, Tolstoy, over 80, boarded a train in southern Moscow. He renounced family wealth and embarked on a spiritual journey. He said, "I cannot live surrounded by mass suffering and sinful luxury." Those station masters and officials urged him to disembark at every stop. He firmly refused. A month later, Tolstoy died of pneumonia in Ostapovo station master's office. Today, at that station's Tolstoy Memorial, we see his words. One achieves true happiness by fulfilling two wishes. First, becoming someone beneficial to others. Second, having a peaceful conscience. The repentance stemming from this became Russian literature's central 19th century theme.
Among Tolstoy's works, Resurrection best embodies this theme.
One day in 1887, a judge told Tolstoy a story. A prostitute stood trial for stealing 100 rubles. A young nobleman served on the jury. He recognized her as a girl he'd seduced years before, then abandoned, never imagining she'd fall into prostitution. Conscience-stricken, he offered marriage. She accepted. He prepared outside prison while she prepared inside. But she contracted typhoid and died in prison. Heartbroken, the nobleman vanished without a trace. This story captivated Tolstoy. The nobleman's repentance and spiritual awakening revealed deeper meanings to him. He asked the judge for permission to write it. The judge agreed gladly. After 10 years, Resurrection was completed in 1899. This 400,000-word novel follows a similar plot. Nobleman Nekhlyudov and Maslova's emotional redemption, set against broad social struggles. Of this moral masterpiece, Tolstoy called Resurrection his finest work. The author of Tolstoy's biography, Maud, believes that Resurrection is filled with noble purposes, embodying the mature thoughts of a great and kind person. The entire book can be divided into 3 parts. The first part tells how Nekhlyudov encounters Maslova in court and recalls past events. In the second part, Nekhlyudov goes through various efforts to try to save Maslova. In the third part, Nekhlyudov follows Maslova into exile in Siberia. Next, I'll interpret according to these 3 parts, showcasing the journey of moral redemption and spiritual resurrection of the 2 protagonists. In the first part of the novel, Nekhlyudov has resigned from the army. Life is melancholic. His daily routine consists of having affairs with married women and replying to various letters. He remotely manages his rural estates from the city, and in the evening, he dines at the Korsakin Duke's house, courting the Duke's daughter. One day, the court invites him to serve as a juror in a trial. What was supposed to be a boring affair unexpectedly changes Nekhlyudov's life completely. In court, the third defendant is a prostitute in her 20s, accused of poisoning a merchant. It turns out that a merchant she was involved with got drunk and caused a ruckus at an inn, so the girl had to take care of him. The merchant at the inn, a couple working there, suggested she give the merchant sleeping pills. She did so, but she didn't expect that the couple had mixed poison into the pills. After the merchant died, the couple stole his money and fled.
But during the trial, the couple pinned all the blame on the girl.
The case wasn't complex, but what shocked Nekhlyudov was recognizing the girl as the lover he abandoned over a decade ago. And the novel then temporarily sets aside the trial and inserts a flashback to the protagonist's romantic past. When he first met Maslova, Nekhlyudov was a college junior.
Young, he held beautiful hopes for society and was full of affection for others.
At his aunt's house, he met the young girl, Maslova. Maslova was illegitimate. Her mother died when she was 3. The owner of the estate where her mother lived, who was also Nekhlyudov's aunt, adopted Maslova.
Nekhlyudov and Maslova played together, developing a budding romance.
As the book says, it was a special relationship of mutual attraction between a pure-hearted young man and an innocent young girl. Later, when Nekhlyudov had to leave for his studies, Maslova hid in the porch and wept bitterly. 3 years later, when they met again, Nekhlyudov had graduated and become an officer. Heading to the front, he stopped at his aunt's, specifically to see Maslova. But now Nekhlyudov was different. No longer the passionate youth devoted to noble causes, but a complete egoist. Every day in society, his former convictions were being destroyed. What he ideally considered good, others thought was bad. Conversely, what he felt was bad based on ideals, others saw as good. For instance, when he discussed God, truth, or wealth inequality, others called him bookish.
When he lived frugally, people said he was naive.
But when he squandered money, everyone praised his refinement. When he treated women respectfully, people suspected he had defects. Yet when he caroused and stole others' girlfriends, everyone applauded his prowess. Even his mother swelled with pride. Gradually, Nekhlyudov stopped believing his convictions. Going with the flow earned him praise instead. He surrendered, and after enlisting, his corruption worsened. Though Nekhlyudov had grown selfish, seeing Maslova made time reverse, he returned to pure love, rediscovering his humanity. Hearing Maslova's footsteps, voice, or laughter filled him with irrepressible joy. They attended Easter service at church together. After the ritual, people kissed in blessing. Maslova looked pure and radiant, flooding Nekhlyudov's heart with love. Mystical then regretful. Mystical faith connected their souls, but the beauty was fleeting. Nekhlyudov's beastly desires ultimately prevailed. As the novel states, before he believed the spiritual self was true, now he saw the beast as man's essence. That night, drunk, Nekhlyudov brutally raped Maslova again. Afterwards, guilt-ridden and uneasy, he forced 100 rubles into her hand. Then he finally consoled himself. Don't most people do this? As for morality, no need to agonize over it. Dirty thoughts quickly dissolved his guilt. Satisfied, he left his aunts to rejoin his troops. 5 months later, Maslova discovered her pregnancy. She desperately hoped Nekhlyudov would return, feeling deep maternal love for her unborn child. Finally, when Nekhlyudov returned from the front and passed his aunt's house, he didn't stop. Maslova rushed to the station as the train was leaving, running along the platform, searching the windows. She finally saw Nekhlyudov inside, laughing with comrades while playing cards. Maslova banged on the window. Unheard, the train jolted and slowly pulled away. A station worker shoved her aside, but she kept running through the rain until the train vanished. Clutching her head, Maslova wailed. Rain lashed her as despair consumed her. She considered throwing herself under the next train. But then her baby kicked. Her rage vanished. Calmly, she smoothed her hair and clothes, walking home, her life's turning point. As the train disappeared, so did hope and innocence. Afterward, Maslova buried her past. Fearing pregnancy shaming, she grew irritable and defiant. Her employers dismissed her. She took refuge with a country widow. There she gave birth, sent the baby to an orphanage, but it died upon arrival. Maslova then worked for an official, but left after his assault. In the city, she joined her aunt's laundry. But laundry work proved too brutal. She couldn't endure it. At her next job, the son assaulted her. The enraged mistress threw her out. Seeking stability, she loved a writer, then a shop assistant. Both abandoned her. With no escape, a client led her to a brothel. There, everyone accelerated her ruin. Madams profited off her. Men used her as a toy. She quickly sank to the bottom of society. Maslova couldn't understand why God had arranged her fate this way. Finally, she stopped thinking about it. When depressed, she'd smoke, drink, flirt with any man, living in self-numbing, until she met the merchant, who was poisoned and sent to court. Back to the courtroom. Yu and Lu Duofu thought the court would acquit Maslova, but the judges only wanted to wrap things up quickly. Eager to meet their lovers, or self-willed and arrogant, or hollow and corrupt in a decadent fin de siècle court, the lawyer found for Maslova was also timid and incompetent. After a chaotic trial, Maslova was finally sentenced to exile and hard labor. At this moment, Nekhlyudov's heart was in turmoil. He wanted to help Maslova, but feared exposing his past disgrace. Yet, heavy guilt gripped him, forcing him to reflect on his actions, Maslova's life, and their pure love. Today, Maslova endured helplessness and sorrow in court, while he himself had fallen deep into a web of foolish, empty, complacent, mediocre life, seeing no way out. In his youth, he was straightforward, swearing to always tell the truth. But now, he's sunk into the mire of hypocrisy. Even his engagement to Duchess Korzakina became shameful and detestable. Oh, he recalled his belief in soul evolution. Before, he had tried to cleanse the filth from his soul, but always gave up halfway.
This time, he decided not to miss the chance for redemption.
You and Leo Duofu made up your mind. He would tell people the truth and help Maslova appeal. First, he mustered the courage to visit Maslova in prison. Reuniting with his lover, Maslova was naturally astonished. She couldn't believe it, murmuring, "It seems like you, but I dare not recognize you." Yuan Lu Duofu said, "I've come to ask for your forgiveness, Maslova." Maslova calmed down. Of course she hadn't forgotten this man's coldness. She told herself, this well-dressed, rosy-cheeked gentleman with perfumed beard isn't the man I loved. He's just one of the many who toyed with me. Thinking this, Maslova felt relieved. She decided to get some benefit from this rich lord first. Then she flashed a seductive smile at Nekhlyudov, hinting for him to hire a famous lawyer for her appeal. As she left, she even asked him for 10 rubles. Yu and Lu Dofu felt somewhat lost and disappointed. He saw that Maslova had also lost her original innocence. He even thought about giving up, but then he reconsidered. Maslova's current state of self-degradation might require him to reawaken her and restore her kind nature, right? During the second visit, Yu and Lu Duofu brought the appeal document, asked Maslova to sign it, and clearly expressed your decision to marry her.
This time, Maslova's pent-up emotions from over a decade suddenly erupted like a volcano. She bitterly recounted the humiliations she had endured for years and scorned the marriage proposal. She said, "You used me for pleasure in this life, and now you want to use me to save your afterlife. I hate you." "Get out with that face! Get out!"
During the third visit, Maslova was calmer. She asked you and Leo Duofu to forgive her outburst, but still warned you to abandon the idea of marriage. Nekhludov and Lu Dofu still refused to give up. He said to Maslova, "No matter where you are exiled, I will follow you there." The second part of the novel mainly describes Yur and Leo Duofu's activities in Petersburg. There, he met various officials, some relatives, some old classmates, some highly influential people recommended by others. These people showed him the arbitrariness and incompetence of the judicial world in the Russian capital. The lawyer told Nekhludov and Lu Duofu that the case would be retried by the Petersburg Senate, but the chances of winning were slim. Yu and Lu Dofu prepared for the worst. If Maslova was exiled, he would follow her into exile. Indeed, the Senate upheld the original verdict. However, on the day of departure for Siberia, over 700 prisoners formed a long line walking on the street.
Accompanied by the sounds of footsteps, shouts, and the murmurs of the crowd, it was a grand spectacle.
Yu and Lu Duofu felt they looked like a group of gray creatures, having lost human characteristics. The weather was hot. Someone collapsed from heat stroke and then died.
Nekhludov and Lu Duofu hired a carriage and followed along the way. In the female prisoner line, he found Maslova, but before they could talk, he was taken away by police. The prisoners finally boarded the train in chaos.
Nekhludov and Lu Dofu found Maslova's carriage and told her that he would take the next train to the exile destination.
Maslova asked him to help a female prisoner in the carriage who was about to give birth.
But the officer on the train said, "Just let her give birth. We'll deal with it after she gives birth." Then the train departed. Maslova stood at the window, looking at you and Leo Duofu with a bitter smile. The novel reaches its third part, mainly depicting the experiences during the exile journey and the spiritual changes in Nekhludov and Maslova. After the train arrived at a city in Siberia, Nekhlyudov and Ludofu seized the opportunity to transfer Maslova from the criminal group to the political group, slightly improving her situation. If she said, Maslova made a few friends among the political prisoners, including a female political prisoner who was simple yet noble and full of compassion. She escaped because she was tired of her aristocratic family life and later was exiled for voluntarily taking the blame for her companions. Another male political prisoner named Simonson, who was independent-minded and rational. Since childhood, he despised officers and the ill-gotten gains of his father, so he ran away from home and joined the Narodniks. Later, while teaching in the countryside, he was arrested for promoting revolutionary ideas. Simonson fell in love with Maslova and wanted to help her. During the exile journey, Nekhlyudov only saw Maslova twice. Well, after more than 2 months of trekking, Maslova became thin, dark, and aged. Her hair was tightly wrapped in a scarf, losing all traces of charm. Yu and Liu Duofu couldn't help but reflect that, over a decade ago, his love for Maslova was poetic. During their second meeting at the estate, he was merely infatuated with her body. After the verdict, his love, though sincere, still contained elements of satisfying vanity and fulfilling duty. And now, facing the withered Maslova, he felt pure pity and compassion, not just for her, but for everyone. Not a condescending sympathy, but an equal empathy after walking in their shoes. Simonson decided to marry Maslova and wanted to seek your and Lu Dofu's opinion. Did Nekhlyudov know Maslova didn't want to burden herself? So he just said, I am not free, but he actually had freedom. After Simonson left, Nekhlyudov and Ludofu found Maslova to inquire about the situation, but Maslova gave no definite answer. And just then, Yu and Leo Dofu received a letter from Petersburg that Maslova had been granted a reduced sentence. Yu and Leo Duofu brought this good news to Maslova and asked her about her future plans. Maslova replied, What is there to consider?
Wherever Simonson goes, I will follow. Why should you stay here to suffer?
You've suffered enough. Yu and Ludofu then said, I will continue to work for you. Maslova replied, Why bother keeping accounts? God will settle our accounts. This reminds us of the second prison visit when Maslova scolded Nekhlyudov, Don't expect to use me to save your afterlife. At this moment, when Maslova said, our, it actually showed that her inner resentment had dissolved. When saying goodbye, her last words were, Please forgive me. Maslova's choice made Nekhlyudov feel regretful. But from her gaze and tone, he felt that Maslova decided to leave out of love for him. The emotions here are indeed complex. Let's briefly analyze. On a personal level, Maslova truly doesn't want to bind him. He deeply knows that he is trapped in moral responsibility. We recall that Nekhlyudov once said to Simonson, I am not free, but Maslova is free. This lack of freedom refers to his moral responsibility. His sin and punishment naturally make him unfree, and it's mutual. After Yu and Liu Duofu's first prison visit, Maslova keenly felt that Nekhlyudov wanted to pull her into another world, your world. Maslova instinctively resisted because she foresaw that in that world she would lose her current free life and thus lose her self-confidence and self-respect. Therefore, refusing Nekhlyudov was also to maintain her dignity. If Nekhlyudov initially decided to save Maslova to repay a debt of conscience, then he has already achieved self-transcendence and spiritual elevation. And then, in this sense, Nekhlyudov's self-redemption has long been complete. His spirit is already free. Then why make a big deal about being together or not? Actually, his spiritual freedom also stems from Maslova's fulfillment. Maslova gave him far more than he gave her. During the exile journey, Nekhlyudov also met many political prisoners, often chatting in their rooms, which deepened his reflection on Russian society. Accompanying Maslova on her exile path was also a journey of elevated thinking for him. Previously, he didn't agree with revolution, but now he sympathizes deeply with the fate of revolutionaries suffering retaliation. Among them, there are indeed opportunists, but most have higher moral standards than ordinary people. Moreover, his observations of exiled criminals deepened. He discovered most were imprisoned due to judicial corruption and violence, an atmosphere that perpetuated among prisoners themselves. Upon release, prisoners brought this violence into society, leaving the masses morally desensitized. Yu and Lu Dofu often wondered, what exactly are these so-called criminal courts? Why do they even exist? It's precisely because of such institutions that countless prisons and thousands of prisoners emerge. Many truly noble individuals are thrown into jail.
Meanwhile, immoral bureaucrats abuse power and manipulate others at will.
He once debated with his brother-in-law, who insisted justice was necessary, that courts upheld righteousness. Nekhlyudov didn't deny the need for punishment, but argued the current system served ruling classes, manufacturing injustices and conflicts that hindered societal progress. He lamented, cannibalism doesn't begin in primal forests. It starts in governments, ministries, and bureaus, only ending in those forests. Simply put, judicial corruption breeds moral decay among the people. In the novel's finale, an Englishman visits the prison distributing gospels. Yu and Lu Dofu serve as translators beside him. When he picks up the gospels to read, he becomes deeply captivated. He reads the parable, "A merciful Lord forgives his servant's enormous debt." That servant then encounters a fellow servant who owes him silver, seizes him, and throws him into prison. Hearing this, the Lord summons the servant. "Shouldn't you have shown mercy, as I showed you?" Nekhlyudov recalls those who commit evil through legal means, condemning others while guilty themselves. Through this story, he grasps that overcoming monstrous evil requires one thing: acknowledge your own sinfulness before God, and forever forgive everyone. Next, in the Gospel's 5 commandments, he sees hope for establishing a righteous earthly order. Nekhlyudov finally attains enlightenment. From that night on, he begins a completely new life. All he previously endured now carries profound, transformed meaning. Through the Gospel's conclusion, the resurrection of Yu and Leo Dofu gains a dimension of spiritual baptism and religious concern. That's the main content of Resurrection. The novel depicts exceptionally vast real-life scenes with numerous characters. Tolstoy prepared extensively, personally investigated prisons, read convict case files and memoirs, observed Petersburg judges' work, and even sketched court blueprints for immersive writing. Tolstoy thus offended the authorities. Censors cut over 500 passages. His comprehensive grasp of society enabled exceptionally detailed, sharp descriptions. For example, during your prison visit, chaotic noise, foul stench, dense barbed wire separating worlds, prisoners' pale, numb faces, furious curses. Many detainees and families stopped you, pleading with Lu Dofu for help or recounting tragic stories. Facing this sick society, Yu and Lu Dofu felt physically nauseated while wondering, why does this exist? In Petersburg, helping Maslova or Lu Dofu required aristocratic connections, personally exposing societal corruption. As a lawyer told him, "We assume prosecutors are liberals. New school they once were, but now they're bureaucrats, only caring about payday on the 20th. Their sole principle: accuse whoever they want, try whoever they want, convict whoever they want. Like a young girl imprisoned for storing revolutionary books and files for a friend." What? After 7 months, Yu and Lu Dofu sought a noblewoman's help. With one word from her, the girl was freed. But this noblewoman helped not for justice, only to seduce Yu and Leo Dofu. Another case, a mother wanting to visit her imprisoned political prisoner's son and bring books. Yu, Leo Dofu, petitioned an old general overseeing political prisoners, a man who rose by suppressing peasant revolts. In his view, everything in the world could change except superior's orders. As for political prisoners going mad, dying of consumption, or committing suicide in prison, he turned a blind eye to it all. When Yu and Leo Duo found him, he was divining about soul matters with subordinates. The general rejected your request because visiting political prisoners wasn't in his superior's orders. As for books, the prison already had plenty. No need to send more. Helpless, Yu left the general to continue his soul divination. These subtle novel details earned Chekhov's praise. Appealing from Maslova in Petersburg, you encountered Deputy Prosecutor Selenin, your college friend. Once upright and sincere, politics eroded his will after joining government. He grew immersed in religious doctrines he once disbelieved. You demanded, why not overturn the verdict? Selenin calmly spouted empty justice rhetoric before digressing into religious preachings. The lifeless reunion revealed only spiritual emptiness in Petersburg's elite. Every bureaucrat Nekhlyudov met ignored innocent suffering, focused solely on eliminating threats to their interests.
Peasants and Christians were separated and exiled for reading gospels outside church doctrine. Officials shamelessly called this defending people's interests. Judicial corruption trapped lower classes in misery, evoking Tolstoy's deep sympathy.
But how to make people coexist harmoniously? Seeking ultimate solutions to social problems, Tolstoy examined traditional philosophy and contemporary thought, ultimately recognizing faith's crucial role. In his spiritual autobiography, Confession, he wrote, "Only faith answers life's questions, making human survival possible." Faith, he believed, could establish beautiful, moral relationships between people. Hence the religious theme concluding resurrection. This ending sparked considerable controversy. Actually, this traces to Tolstoy's late life ideological shift. Around the 1870s, he suddenly plunged into spiritual confusion. From his diary, we see this likely relates to his growing awareness of death's spiritual dimension. In Confession, Tolstoy documented his own sense of crisis. He said, "The question is, why should I live? Why? What should I hope for? Why should I do anything?" Or to rephrase, is there meaning in life that inevitable death can't destroy? But Tolstoy despised church theologians. Their aristocratic lives contradicted their teachings. Religion was just rituals, Eucharist, worship, fasting, icon veneration. For example, your Petersburg aunt fervently believed in religious atonement doctrines. One evening, she hosted a priest. Lavishly dressed noblewomen wept during his sermon. Suddenly radiant, he flashed an actor's smile and crooned, "Now you're saved. God's Son shed blood for us. He suffered willingly." The ritual ended amid universal delight, like experiencing an illusory redemption journey in a theater. This performative ritual disgusted Nekhlyudov and Louis Dauphin. This mirrored Tolstoy's own church stance. Instead, the poor's faith showed him soulful serenity, why he later focused on common people's lives. He sought meaning through faith cultivated virtue, labor, humility, suffering, kindness, a spirit bonded by mutual love in real existence. Resurrection also depicts touching scenes of popular faith, like when Leo Tolstoy and Maslova reunited for Easter service. Everything felt sacred, people kissing, blessing, even tearful beggars embracing. Maslova blessed him, her eyes radiating holy light. Nekhlyudov's hearts overflowed with love for humanity, a beautiful, mysterious faith connecting their souls. People emerged from church joyfully shouting, "Christ is risen!" In this scene, Tolstoy invested his religious faith, inseparable from people's daily lives. Faith is life, life is faith. During Maslova's Siberian exile journey, Nekhlyudov completed moral salvation. He knew the Gospels before, but only when opening them in the inn did he truly grasp their meaning after witnessing so much suffering. The Gospels illuminated the significance of Nekhlyudov's journey and enlightened his understanding. He learned not just to love individuals, but all humanity. Humanity's resurrection can only be achieved through this religious sentiment. The spiritual purgatory of Nekhlyudov perfectly embodies Tolstoy's philosophy of life. Through loving others' souls and awakening one's divinity, achieving union with God constitutes life's meaning and happiness. From the 1870s to the 1880s, Tolstoy spent nearly a decade transforming his moral and religious views. Written during this period, resurrection became his soul's intense baptism. In his philosophical work, The Pathway of Life, he wrote, "Life's meaning lies in loving other souls and uniting with God through divine awareness." For Tolstoy, true faith was pure spiritual pursuit.
Faith exists in life, not in religious performances. Russia's church clung to rituals, ignoring spiritual essence.
Tolstoy's criticism finally provoked church authorities. After finishing Resurrection, the church secretly sent a priest to collect evidence against Tolstoy's religious views.
What a Chen!
2 years later, the Holy Synod excommunicated Tolstoy. Contemporaries lamented Tolstoy's religious turn. Chekhov thought the gospel ending was as arbitrary as classifying prisoners. On his deathbed, Turgenev wrote, "My friend returned to literature." Of course, we can defend Tolstoy a bit. He held ambivalent views toward revolution. He once said, "People expect another French Revolution, but that's futile. We should anticipate a greater spiritual transformation, an awakening of religious consciousness." For example, in Resurrection, when encountering workers on a train, Nekhlyudov deemed them true new people and real nobility. Yet he distrusted the masses, deeply troubled by their moral decay. Similarly, while admiring revolutionaries' virtue, he saw narrow-mindedness and extremism in some leaders. This mindset was common among late 19th, early 20th century Russian writers. When unable to foresee social liberation, they sought alternatives, like Tolstoy's turn to religion, which makes perfect sense. Nevertheless, Resurrection avoids becoming dull or abstract, despite its religious themes. Renowned critic Bakhtin noted its passion for judging reality. Through critical depiction, Tolstoy's refined artistic critique remains an unsurpassed model to this day. People often debate, which is greater, War and Peace, Anna Karenina, or Resurrection? Answers vary across authors and eras. In China, Resurrection consistently overshadowed the others, with multiple translations published as early as the 1920s to 30s. 20th century China's revolutionary era found inspiration and emotional fuel in Resurrection. Even today, its sincere repentance and profound self-reflection remain vital virtues we must cultivate. As Tolstoy wrote in The Pathway of Life, "Don't seek God in temples. He lives in your heart." All right, that concludes our interpretation of Tolstoy's Resurrection. Reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.